When you make videos on the internet for a living, sometimes an idea strikes out of nowhere and you feel the urge to grab your tripod and start filming. And that is one of these. It is early. I just woke up. It's very dreary outside. I haven't even brushed my teeth yet. That's how I rolled out of bed thinking about this. People always say, is it hard to be a content creator? Is it hard to make videos about markets and stuff like that? Is it hard to be a content creator? And it's the more, it's like anything, the more you do it, the better you get. But you're always working. I mean, you have an idea at 2 a.m. You put that, I'll be talking to a friend and we'll both have an idea for a video and we'll like immediately ghost each other and we'll film the video and then we'll come back like minutes later and she'll be like, were you? And I'll be like, yep, same video. And she'll be like, yep. And it can be at all hours. And that's this one. It's early Sunday morning. I have to get ready for a live on TikTok after this. I have to brush my teeth. I have to have my coffee. But I'm not even going to edit this out. That's how lazy I feel. When you are thinking about money and you actually have it, it's two very, very different things. And I see it so often on TikTok. People saying, if I had 1 million, if I had 100,000, if. And it's always so much easier to think all the crazy things you're going to do if you had money. And the means of getting that money, by the way, are always, they're always unknown. It's not like I'm working very hard. I have this goal. I'm doing this thing. It's always like, if I won the lottery, or if like a distant relative who I didn't know exists died and it turns out they were a millionaire and they gave me $1 million, or I won a lawsuit, or there was a settlement with a company, or I don't know how else people stumble into $1 million, but it's always in one of those scenarios. If this money was suddenly given to me, I would buy this, I would buy that. And when it comes to investing the money, it's always something that when you are actually holding that money in your hot little hand, you suddenly think very differently about the money you have. There's always this vision that when I get money, I'm going to go and I'm going to do something crazy with that money. I'm going to double it, quadruple it. I'm going to turn 1 million into 5 million. And it's easy to talk a big game when you don't have the money. And that's how you can spot an inexperienced person or an immature person, frankly, is when they're in the comments on a video telling you that you're stupid for picking a stable company with a stable dividend. Maybe it's 3 or 4%, and they come in the comments and they laugh at you and they go, why would you buy that with a 4% dividend and mediocre growth? You could have just bought Bitcoin or something. Not to say that Bitcoin is super high risk, but there's a level of risk involved. I mean, for example, you could have bought Bitcoin when it was 69, 70,000 and it dropped all the way to 20. And yes, it is still moving its way back up and it could go into the 200,000s, but I would still consider it a little bit of a risk or a little bit of an unknown. It could absolutely go to 200,000 in the next decade or something, but it might not. Maybe Bitcoin was a bad example. It's early, but you get the point. You could have bought crypto. You could have bought this high dividend stock. You could have bought some very volatile covered call ETF that pays a huge dividend, but it's down a lot. It's always some inexperienced investor or person who doesn't really grasp the concept of how lucky they would be in this scenario to have $1 million. It's always, if I got $1 million, I would go and I would dump it all into this altcoin. I would dump it into this very high paying dividend stock. You're stupid for putting it into something slow and predictable. But when you have that money, and especially if that money was given to you or you want it, hopefully you don't think in terms of like, I'm going to be reckless with it. Hopefully you go into conservation mode. I think that's what most savvy investors feel they would do. If I were in a situation where $1 million fell into my lap, I don't think I would run out and put it into Zim, the Israeli shipping container company. Now, a lot of people would say when I was making videos on the stock and I was saying, hey, be careful, be careful. Or here are top 5 great dividend stocks. And it was, 3M, 3M, McDonald's, Coke, stuff like that, Realty Income. They would flood the comments. Where's Zim? Why isn't Zim on there? Because it's not a great dividend paying stock. It's extremely volatile. The dividend is over 100%, or at least it was at the time. Any savvy investor sees that it pays a 100% dividend, and they just chuckle. They go like, huh, okay, this one is not to be taken seriously. This one is very high risk, and not to say that some people didn't own it. I bought a little. I bought a little. That's the key word, little. I looked at it. I looked at the dividend. I said, this is crazy. This is not sustainable. Let's see what happens. And I bought a very small amount of shares because I knew it was going to come down in value. You can look at the numbers and you can say, man, and you can look at what was going on at the time with COVID and supply chain and all of that. And I said, man, as soon as this stock starts to lose value, the first thing that's getting cut is their dividend. Sure enough, they went from paying 110% dividend to a 70% dividend to nothing. They don't pay dividend anymore. And it's not to say that they might not add it back in the future, but let me tell you, if you put $1 million into that stock, like some of these people said that they would do, if $1 million fell into my lap, savvy investors go into preservation mode. If $1 million fell into their lap, even whether they're wealthy or not, right? I say investor, people immediately assume, oh, that guy's rich, he's got a lot of money. There are plenty of investors who are very savvy, but aren't high income earners. They don't have a lot of money. And they know that if something happened, they got a scratch off lottery ticket at a Christmas party and they want $1 million. First they would scratch it and they'd be like, oh, I lost. They wouldn't go around going like, oh. And if they were in that situation where they want $1 million from a scratch off lottery ticket, and they were a savvy investor, their first thought would be, I have to preserve this capital because this was a gift. This was a once in a lifetime. They wouldn't go and buy a Lamborghini and a bunch of altcoins and cross their fingers and hope for the best. They would go into preservation mode. It's maybe a little bit of a different story if you know how to make $1 million and you've made $1 million and you want to risk a lot more money because you know you can replicate that again. That is not most people, unfortunately. No matter how many memes you see that say, oh, making the first $1 million is really easy and blah, 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 you can do it. Or no, what are they? They're like, the first $1 million is hard, but once you figure out how to do it, you can make millions all the time. For most people, that's not the reality. And it's a dream and it's a fantasy. If I had $1 million. So I would caution people who are new investors and remind them that a lot of things that are too good to be true or look like they're too good to be true, they are. You need to be very, very careful with high-paying dividend stocks. That's why most wealthy investors stick to the classics. They have the boring, slow, predictable companies that are dividend kings or aristocrats that have paid a dividend for a lifetime. They're not interested in speculative. They're not interested in high risk. And if they are, it becomes a very small portion of their portfolio. Like for me, the majority of my profile is in growth stocks, dividends, S&P 500 index funds, real estate investment trusts, boring, slow-moving stuff that I'm investing in for my lifetime. And then there's a portion over here that is XRP, HBAR, Polygon Matic, and then larger holdings in Bitcoin and Ethereum, but still here. And even high-risk stocks like TSLY, covered call ETFs here in this pile. Because I know how hard it is to make and preserve capital. I'm not trying to be reckless and lose everything, especially if it was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity where $1 million just falls into my lap. I'm not going to think in the mindset of, I have to take this $1 million and turn it into 10. I'm going to look at that $1 million and think, what is the safest thing I can do with this money to preserve it? Because once in a lifetime, it just fell into my lap. So I want to know in the comments below what you would do, who you would be. Are you the person who's going to be dumping a lot of money into the safe and boring? Or are you the person who thinks, I'm going to be able to take $1 million that fell into my lap, scratch off lottery ticket, distant relative died and gave me $1 million, class action lawsuit, I'm going to take it and put it into the most high risk and double, triple, quadruple it? Or I'm going to stick it in some boring stuff that's slow and predictable? What would you do? Let me know in the comments. Hit the subscribe, hit the follow, leave a comment. Tell me what you do in the comments. Thanks for watching. I'm going to go brush my teeth. Okay, I had one other thought. You can probably hear my espresso machine in the background, but as I was making my coffee, I thought, oh, I forgot to add something. And that is, no, you wouldn't. People always talk this big game. Here's everything I would do. Oh, if I had $1 million, here's everything I would do. I would buy this, I would buy that. No, you wouldn't. And if you actually would, I worry. I had a guy about 3 years ago, messaged me on Instagram saying, hey, Ken, I saw your videos. I started trading. I got really, really lucky. It was right place, right time for me. I started trading with $10,000. I turned it into $100,000 relatively quickly. I'm like, wow, that's dumb luck. Good for you. He goes, well, it's not where the story ends. Took the $100,000 and I decided I was going to trade it into $1 million. So first thing I would do in that case, if I traded with 10,000 and I was lucky enough to get to 100 grand, I would be in preservation mode. I would be thinking, wow, this was very lucky. I'm going to take that 100,000. I'm going to put 50 grand into investments or savings or withhold some for taxes too. And then I'll start trading with smaller amounts again. Because that's been my whole thing, is small, consistent profits over time. I've never been the trader who was like, I'm going to take 10,000, turn it into 100,000, 100,000 into $1 million. That's very risky. Some people I'm sure have done it, but that's just not where I was comfortable. Not having a lot of money, I was not comfortable taking 10,000 and turning it into 100,000, then 100,000 into $1 million, and $1 million into 10 million, and before you know it, you're Jeff Bezos. Come on, grow up. Anyway, so this guy writes me and he goes, I hit 100,000. I decided I'm going to trade it into $1 million, and I did it. I got to $1 million. And instead of then saying, wow, what a run, I'm going to take some of that million and I'm going to stash it and I'm going to start accounts for my kids, because he had a kid, and I'm going to buy a home or pay off a mortgage or do something really life-changing with that money. Instead of doing that, this guy said, I'm going to take that $1 million and turn it into 10 million. And then I'm going to take the 10 million and turn it into 100 million. And in this guy's scenario, it just was going to keep going up and up and up. And I'm just sitting there going, oh my God, this is making me really nervous. So he tells me that he gets up to in the millions, low millions, and makes a trade that goes against him. And because he's inexperienced, he doesn't know what to do. And he puts in the whole amount on every trade, right? He's not trading with, oh, I have $1 million, I'm going to buy 100,000 shares and, I lose it. Well, I still have 900,000. He was putting in $1 million in the whole trade. And saw that number go up, and then before he got out of the trade, it started to come back down, and he starts going, uh-oh. His now $1 million is now 700,000. Very high risk penny stock, I guess. And then it drops to 500,000. And he's sitting there doing everything that every new and inexperienced trader does, which is, it'll come back. It's when it's $1 million, when it goes to 1.3 million, I'll sell it. And then it drops to 700,000, and it's, well, when it gets back to $1 million, I'll sell it. And then it goes to $500,000. Well, when it gets to 700, I'll sell it. And then it gets to 250. I mean, this guy is basically losing all of his money. And at a certain point, he hits the panic and he sells, and he recoups his $300,000. And he goes, I can't believe I was up into the 1 point something millions. And what an idiot. And he comes to me and he goes, how do I do it again? And, these are the life lessons that are very painful for people to learn, that experienced traders, first of all, wouldn't find themselves in a situation where if they had taken 10,000 and turned it into a $100,000 trade, they would be very fortunate and very lucky. The experienced trader, I think, at least this is what I would do, would preserve that capital. Maybe if I was trading with 10,000 every time and I was lucky enough to get up to 100,000 in a profit on one stock, maybe I would say, hey, instead of trading with 10,000, I'll trade with 15,000. A little bit more, but I'm going to pocket the rest of that and put it into safe, boring, practical. Most people who say, here's what I would do if I had money, no, you wouldn't. Some people do, and they get wrecked. So learn from them. All right, now I'm done. Now I'm gonna brush my teeth. Bye. This is the video that never ends. I just had another thought. And you can see I'm almost half done now with my coffee. We live in a world, sorry, I'm just fixing my tripod and it's making some sounds. We live in a world where people try to do one of two things. One, they try to get a lot of views, and two, they try to help people, right? That's for influencers and this whole money community. This is not a good angle. It's that, you have the people on social media who are trying to help, and they almost never get any views, like me. Or you have the people who are saying, this strategy can make you thousands of % on your crypto every single week. People rush to those videos, and I understand it. It's because we live in a world where everything is getting more and more expensive. People aren't getting paid living wages. Rent is increasing at a higher rate. Home ownership is increasing, or home prices are increasing at a higher rate. Groceries, cars, gas, everything is more expensive, but the wages are still down here. And so obviously, of course, when people are struggling and they're worried about financial pressures in the world, maybe they've bitten off more than they can chew. I see it all the time. I have friends who have two or three kids, and they go, we can't afford. And I'm sitting there going, why'd you have 3 or 4 kids? They're expensive to have. Why did you do that? And they go, well, we thought things would turn around. We didn't know. And so, of course, when people find themselves in these situations, they're looking for the way they're looking for that little secret, that little edge up. Some dividend ETF that isn't 4%, that's 4%, what's that going to do? People need money now. And that's why they fall for these get-rich-quick schemes all the time. The stock market isn't a scam. The desire to get rich really, really fast is a scam. It's a lie. And it usually comes from people who are trying to get views on social media. I don't even know if they invest in the stuff that they're talking about. Not that I invest in a lot of the stuff I talk about either, but that's because you can't invest in everything. But I think there's a difference between these guys who come out and say, this ETF pays a 75% dividend annually. What? Come on. But people fall for it. Because they're so hard up for money, which is understandable. But it makes me sad because you have these people, these content creators who are doing this on purpose because they know it will get them views. And they're looking out for themselves. They don't care that someone is going to watch that video and say, oh, I should go all in on this, 70%. And I get messages, DMs from people who say, what do you think of this? Some guy talked about this fund or this strategy or this thing. What do you think about it? If it sounds too good to be true, it probably is. And if you're curious, put in what you're willing to lose. Like I mentioned with Zim, the Israeli shipping one. I've done that. I put in what I was willing to lose. I bought some out of curiosity and I said, hey, I'll put in what I'm willing to lose, and I can use the dividend payment not to buy more shares. I can use the dividend to make safer investments. Or like I've talked about before, my tires needed to be replaced. A big fat dividend from Zim came in, and I was like, oh, convenient timing. Tires purchased by this dividend. But if it looks too good to be true, reinvesting your dividends into something that's losing value, you're just throwing your money away. So please be careful. All right. I think I'm actually done with this video now. Bye.